Guys, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the first of our Story Sessions event. My name's Travis. We're going to look at the lives of people that live in our communities. We want to see how they are being intentional about their stories, and then through their stories learn a bit more about how we can be intentional about living our own stories. A turning point happened.
I remember sitting clearly, I was actually sitting in a flat in Amshlanga. This solo came on that just completely floored me.
This whole process followed where Gareth began to really find his expression in a different way. And the solo didn't become the end goal anymore. It became something that he would always work towards. But within that space, he started to actually diversify and develop the Gareth Gale approach to drumming. We're super proud of someone who's been exceptionally intentional about every step that he's taken, and been so intentional about making sure that he doesn't let his mind get into the place of being negative and doubting his ability to actually make something happen in Durban.
I live the instrument. I mean, it's not even a job, it's a career, it's a calling, it's all of those things. And I try to every day just continue taking steps forward. So I'll wake up in the morning, I go down and I begin practicing my rudiments. And if I'm not practicing, I'm thinking about it.
Let me just say, I'm so excited to be here, so excited. These glasses are for show. Let me tell you, just to look, you get that whole sympathy thing, am I right? If you wear glasses, you've also got it going on. You don't need the glasses.
Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who weren't here,
Do you want to be on this side?
no, it's okay.
You sure? Because aren't you doing the machine thing there?
Okay.
I'll go this side.
And you spoke to me about the whole have gear, world travel. I mean, what did you guys do for the first part of your career?
We just went everywhere. We went everywhere. We always in Joe. We're just traveling. Lisa had this golf. We used to chuck all the gear in the golf and just go to all these dorps and perform. And we were doing shows here in Durban and anywhere, Joburg, Cape Town. We're just like on a mission, Keep your passion alive for what you're doing, and then the creative will follow. And don't think for a second that you're owed anything. You're not owed anything. If you think that you're entitled to anything, that's the death knell for you. I was in the movie Spud. I don't know if you saw the movie Spud. I was the handsome guy there. I was there. Jeez, I tell you, the first scene I did with John Cleese, I met him. I was trying not to be all like, whatever. I was like, yeah, how are you? And I was trying not to be all like a groupie. And we got on well. We came and chatted to me about one-man shows, and I was like, yeah, me and you, yeah, we're hanging.
Awesome. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you for having me. It's been really awesome. Thanks, Steph. All the best.
I'd like to welcome everyone to Story Sessions. Sean, as you know, was born in the city. He was on the Pro Tour for 16 years. He won 19 professional titles. One of those a world title. A bunch of those titles right here at the Gunson 500 on our promenade. In 1999, he was labeled as one of 25 most influential surfers of the century. And in 2004 was labeled one of 16 of the greatest surfers of all time. So why don't you welcome to Story Session stage number 3, Sean Thompson.
When you're hitting that turn at the bottom, the wave's already standing up, and that's when you're taking off at pipeline, when it's at its most vertical, when it's at its absolutely most dangerous, and that is the ultimate test. When you swing around and it's just human power, there's no diesel, there's no gas, it's just you and your board and that deadly drop. It's, I think that's what defines you. Once I was able and I had this confidence to perform out there and sort of surf it differently, it became super important. And when you can do something well, whatever it is, it just builds you. It just gives you so much confidence, or other stuff. You know, some of the waves, like they just take you back to that time when it was just it was so pure and free. And as surfers, you know, we are so lucky that we all experience exactly the same thing. You don't have to be a world champion to experience what we all experience. I experience the same thing now as I experienced when I was 9 years old and I caught my first wave. And competition was always the smallest little sliver. But I think the reason I was successful was because I loved the other stuff so much. And it's the same with Kelly Slater. You know, I was down at J-Bay a few years ago, and the surf was really good for the contest, 6 to 8 feet. And it was predicted to stay around 6 to 8 feet for the next week. And I woke up early the next morning and all the pros had cleared out of town. They were all there the day before. They cleared out of town. There's only one pro left. That was Kelly Slater. And he was there because he loved it more than the rest. And that's why he's been 10 times world champion. And that's why he'll more than likely, you know, win it 11 times, because he does it for the right reason, because he loves it more.
Lele Africa, maluphakanyiswe uphondo lwayo, maluphakanyiswe udumo lwayo, uhlaziya ucabanga kwethu, uhlaziya ucabanga kwethu, khanyisela abaholi bethu, khanyisela abaholi bethu, liqhakaza ikusasa lethu, liqhakaza ikusasa lethu. Yebo Nkosi yami, yebo Mvelinqangi, siyacela Nkosi enkulu, siyacela Themba lethu, sikelela imizamo yethu, sikelela ingane zethu, sikelela ogogo nomkhulu, sikelela Mvelinqangi, sikelela imizamo yethu, uyeye sikelela, sikelela ikusasa lethu.
Your journey into the storytelling began when you decided to accept who you were.
Yeah, but by the time I was at high school, I thought I was the ugliest thing on two legs. And so I walked around at school. Oh, Miss Ugly, top of the class. Thank goodness I was good academically. And I sat there and I wrote my first poem. And then I stood up and I read it out loud. When I read it out loud for the first time, I thought, Haibo, maybe Reverend Figen is right. Resonant. Is that it? Huh? Is that it? And so I fell in love with my voice. I decided I was okay. I stood there touching my face, touching my funny hair, touching my body. And people who were looking, who were passing by, I don't know what they thought. There's a girl under the tree touching herself. But that was the falling in love that happened in 1977. People say, why do you tell stories? The answer is the same. I tell stories in order to wake up stories in you, and in you, and in you, and in you. That's why I tell stories. And I want to hear more stories from you. I'm hungry for those kinds of stories. When we talk about South Africa, we still haven't reached that place where we can say we are a nation. We have not reached that place. And I truly believe by sharing our stories, by coming closer and closer through stories, and our children getting to know their own stories and realizing, Yazin, you're not so different from me. We are more alike than we are different. When our children, we give them the light to shine on that beauty, that uniqueness that is so universal. We're talking as South Africa, that's going to be a really nation with a capital N.
Catherine and I flew to San Francisco from Dubai, and we flew over the North Pole. Last year we went to Hawaii to do Ironman. And so what happened was, you know, and I looked out of the plane, and when you fly over because the Earth is elliptical, you can see a little bit of the curvature of the Earth. But when you step onto the summit of Everest, you can physically see the curvature of the Earth.
Sure.
So you start at about 2,700 meters, and you walk up to Everest Base Camp, which is at 5,350 meters, where you're going to be, that's the minimum altitude, lowest altitude you're going to be at. And when you walk in there are some mountains that tower above you. When you're on the summit of Everest, they're below your feet. I think doubt is something that limits us. What I like to do is, I'm just a normal, like anybody else. There's no great shakes about Sean Wisdale or about anybody on earth. We're all the same. And there are only a number of things that limit us. The one is through our imagination, our will and our determination. And then, of course, there's doubt. Because the thing with it really is, if you've got a will, or even if you don't, if you have some kind of imagination and whatever it is that you've imagined and you feel for a second that you might not possibly be able to do that, that's unacceptable.
It's good.
And that's the thing with it is that just stamp out the doubt.
Take the next step.
Yeah, take it. And
Guys,
just
big
go
round
for
of applause for Sean Wisdale.
it. Thanks, Travis. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's the morning after worry. I feel it too. All the guilt and shame you must feel. I pity you. I try with all my might to free the chains around.
I just want to welcome the Marine Surf Lifesaving members here tonight, and I really want to say that this night is really in honor of you. One thing that we share in common as South Africans is that we love our country, but I think something else that we share in common is that we also are very aware of the uncertainty of what it means to be living in South Africa. At some point we've had the kind of thoughts around, is this country going to succeed or isn't it? And the reason why I'm saying this is because the more time I've spent with the chaps from Marine, the more I've realized that they've been pushing through change. They've pushed through uncertainty. We're doing this event in this car park because they existed in this very car park, and they've also had the system sometimes working against them. And I've realized that the mentality and the attitude that they have has a lot to teach us and show us as South Africans and as a nation that we can actually apply into how to engage with living in this country and tackling what's been thrown in us as South Africans.
We escalated to the best growth the club had in over 10 years. I mean, that year was nothing, was when you really saw people come out and dig really, really deep and sort of start to rebuild. That's where the rebuilding took place, when we had nothing. There's examples of guys now that have come up through our system that have gone on to really make a mark in society. And I was walking along the beach with one of the chairmen, one of the national chairmen, and some sort of senior guys, and they took one look at all of our stuff packed out there. They saw the guys putting the numbers on it. He turned around and said to me, "How did you get these oaks to change their attitude like this?" And it was the easiest thing I've ever had to say. I just turned around and said to him, "No, we just changed ours."
As a 26-year-old, you are the senior lifeguard of this whole kind of Bay Area. Well,
Yes, yeah, that is correct.
okay.
I was, I got given an opportunity to actually run that beach, that Wedge Beach, one of the busiest beach in South Africa. And yeah, the guys just laughed at me like, "Who are you? You're like 23 and you want to run this beach?" I felt so proud. It took a lot out of me as well. It sort of shaped me of what I've become through the love of sports and through lifesaving as well.
It's representative of the value that Marine Surf Lifesaving Club place on everybody's head, no matter who they are and where they come from and what their background is. Everybody's equal. And this is why I said this is what we need to learn about as a nation. Placing value on each other's heads and going, you know what, you can succeed, and that ambition that you had in you, you've just taken it and you've run with it. So I was just say, well done.
Thank you.
Thanks very much to all of you as well for your interest in this story. It's more than a story. It's not over yet. It's only it's an early chapter for us. But thanks very much to you guys too.
What I'm really excited about tonight is that this story that we're going to hear isn't per chance. It's not like it just happened. It was a very, very intentional story that got Hirsch's to where they are today. And there's been a very key player in all of that has believed in her potential, that's believed in the potential of believing in herself, almost to the point where she was recently awarded SA Businesswoman of the Year in the entrepreneurial category. So please would you join me in welcoming Margaret Hirsch. Thanks, Margaret.
Well, we were a very middle-class family, and my parents were South Africans who went to Rhodesia to make their money after the Second World War, and they arrived in Salisbury in 1950 when I was born. And everything went fine until I don't quite know what happened, but when I was about 10, my father got sick, and we came back to South Africa, and he died shortly afterwards. And that was my first defining moment. My mother was just a typical housewife in those days, and she didn't know anything. So when she became a widow, she didn't know anything about insurance. She had no clue. She didn't have a bank account. So she didn't know what to do. So I was in standard 5, and he died in the June. So I was put into a foster home in Pietermaritzburg while my mother came to Durban and stayed in a relative's backyard with my brother until she could gain enough money. She worked at Linen in Leicester for 30 Rand a month for the first 6 months so that she could get it on her feet and bring me down, which she did in the January. I came back in the January and I started school in Durban. And at that stage I realized that I never wanted as a woman to be totally unprepared. I have a farm, as you know, and I used to have cows. I've sold them all now, but I used to have a lot of cows, and we had a lot of cows, and they all walked around the house, and they made lots of poos. And it was very unfair of them because they pooed all over the show where you didn't want to. But so I said to my maid, who now thought she was a little bit uppity, and she wouldn't pick up the cow poo. So I said, well, get somebody from the farm who hasn't got a job and bring them up. So Paulina came as the picker-upper of the cow poo, and she would come in every day and ask for the checkers bag and go around and pick up the cow poo. But after that, she would wash and clean herself up, and she would watch the maid in the kitchen, and she would learn what to do. And she gradually graduated into the farmhouse, and eventually into my flat down here. And then one day I needed a tea girl. We had a branch at Toti, and I said, quickly, Paulina, the tea girl hasn't pitched. You're going to be the tea girl. And she got to be the tea girl. And I always taught her to just do a little bit more. And she just did a little bit more. And then she got promoted to superstore. She was the tea girl there. Then she came here. And every time she would learn a bit more and a bit more. And as she went along, she now is one of my top sales ladies. She earns 20,000 Rand a month. She's bought her own home. She has her own home. She hasn't had any children of her own, but she's got 5 adopted children who she's educated. And that was always just by doing just that little bit more to get ordinary people revved up to be extraordinary. And that is our goal at Hirsch, is to take ordinary people and make them extraordinary. This country is my passion, and for us as South Africans, and I think as South Africans, especially people like you who have an insight, you've got to help this country. Stop putting South Africa down. Stop talking about the crime. Just work on the positive, and if you work on the positive, whatever you focus on will expand. I've proved that in my business, I've proved that in my life. And I want you as South Africans to just be so positive. If somebody comes and says anything negative to me about South Africa, I chuck them out straight away. What can you do to make this country better? What are you doing about it? You know, a lot of people talk about it, but what are you doing about it?